Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Pet Haven Farm. In today's video, I'm going to be covering a topic that I actually got asked a question about, and that is moving with pets, specifically rabbits, but I will touch on dogs because I have a dog as well. And I thought I'd make a video on it because when I was looking to move, like I did recently, I was looking for information on it and I couldn't really find much out there. So we're just going to jump straight into it. First thing I want to say is that you probably don't need to stress about it as much as you are. I know, I was really worried about it. I was like, what if they don't settle in? What if, it makes them really nervous, particularly, rabbits, new environments, they're prey animals. What if they freak out and they just, retreat to a little corner and stay there shaking for days or something like that? And honestly, in my opinion, they settled in quite fine on their own, and I was more worried about it than I needed to be because they were fine. Despite that, there are probably some things that we can do to help in this situation to make it a little bit easier for them. So I'm going to be talking mostly about rabbits, and then at the end I'll add in a little bit of kind of what I did to help my dog out a little bit. So for the rabbit, she was a solo rabbit, but as you may have found out, now we have another rabbit. So for her, we set her up in a smaller space, but that was mainly because we knew we were going to be getting another rabbit and the place is smaller. But I did find that helped. She had a little confined space with her litter box in it and all her stuff. So I didn't wash her blanket beforehand. I didn't actually give her litter tray a good clean, so any of the stains or smells that were on or in the litter tray, they were still in there. So it smelt familiar to her. That smelt like her territory. Her blankets, I didn't wash them, so they smelt like her. And her toys smelt like her. And everything else that was in there that was hers smelt like her. So that didn't really change much for her. And it was a smaller space. So it's not like I brought her to this big new house that she doesn't know and put her just in the middle of it and let her work it out. It was a small space, so I think she kind of found comfort in that because she sniffed around and, after 5-10 minutes, she'd sniff the space around and she was like, okay, cool, it smells like me, it's a bit different, and she kind of relaxed a bit. And within 24 hours, she was flopping on the floor and laying down and chilling because there's not much space to run around where she is at the moment, and she was fine. So I would definitely suggest a smaller space so that it's not so overwhelming for them, and trying to keep some of their things almost dirty so that they smell like them. I know the want to kind of have everything really nice and clean in this brand new house, but keeping those things smelling like they're familiar to, I found that really helped my bun. I think I found that the most stressful part for her was the car ride because she doesn't like car rides. Once she was, out of the car and in her space, she settled down better and she was fine, and I was more worried than I needed to be, like I've said. The thing I did, which I think really helped with all, both the animals, the rabbit and the dog, and when I bring new animals, is that I will put them in their space and then I will feed them. Animals really work well with positive reinforcement. And food is a really good way for them to associate something as a positive memory. So if I give them a food that they like in a new environment, often I find that they go, oh, okay, cool, this place is good. I get food here. That's cool. So when I put her in her pen, I gave her her favorite treat, which is goji berry. And I fed her dinner and gave her her water, obviously, and everything else like that. So I think that helped her as well because she had dinner as normal and she had food as soon as she got to this new place. Over time, there's been some things that I've heard that I think would probably be helpful that I didn't do or couldn't do. So one thing that I've heard is to actually, in their new place, set up the space similarly to what it was where you were before. So if, you had a square pen set up and the little box was on the left back corner, then in the new place, square pen, left back corner for the little box. So kind of positioning their stuff in a similar space wherever you set up their little X pen. If they were free roam before, then I would kind of suggest setting up a pen in an area and making that similar to their home base, and then having the door closed. But then if you want, you can open the door up. They know that they can stay in there until they feel safe, and they can venture out in their own time. Another thing I've seen people do, which I think is really kind of nifty, if you obviously know in advance that in your new place there's no possible way that you can keep the setup the same, or you just really want to change it. I've seen a couple of people in my bunny parents Facebook page for the rabbit sanctuary actually adjust the space that they're previously living in a little bit beforehand to match closer to what it will be when they move, so the bunny gets used to it in an environment that they know. That way when they move, the setup is kind of the same. So I guess if you're in that situation, you could do that. Lastly, I want to talk about the things that I kind of wish I did differently in hindsight, so that other people can, I don't know, make their own different mistakes, but maybe not these ones. I wish I had been more prepared in setting up her space. We kind of left it all to the last minute, and I ended up moving her pen and her at the same time. So she was in her carrier at the new place while I was setting up her pen, and I kind of wished it hadn't been like that. I did plan to have pens, new pens, bigger ones and taller ones, so she couldn't jump out and we didn't have to have a blanket over the top, arrive at the house beforehand, and so I was going to set that space up for her, so it was ready for her, but they didn't come, and so I couldn't do it for those reasons. But I wish I had been able to do that, because then I could have just put her in and kind of didn't have to kind of have her waiting in her carrier, because I think that probably made things a little bit more stressful than they had to be. And I kind of just, I wish I could have set up her space similar to the old place. I didn't do that. I've heard it's good, but I didn't, because the space was so much smaller. She had a whole room, and now she doesn't even technically have what is required, because, you know, we don't have the pens that are the right size, and because we have a second rabbit now, we had to kind of give 8 panels to the new one and 8 panels to her, but they're not 80 centimeter panels, they're 60 centimeter panels, so it's smaller than I would like, smaller than's ideal. So yeah, I kind of wish I could have set up her space better for her to just come into, and that's probably the main one. The other thing I wish is that I wish I had have had her on a regular schedule. I know rabbits do really well with schedules, like being fed at the same time every night, but I have different things on each evening, and so she just does end up being fed at slightly different times each night, and she doesn't really have any strict particular schedule. So I kind of wish I did have a schedule with her, so that when we moved, I could have kept that schedule up, so that for her the routine was the same, and I think that would have helped as well. Before I end the video, I just want to touch on the dog, because I feel like that would probably be helpful for people too. But honestly, you can kind of take the information that I've said for rabbits and apply it to lots of different species. Like, you know, if you have cats or dogs, or you know, I guess fish is not as much of a problem, because their tank is their tank, so it will look the same, so they probably won't notice. Any other species that you can think of, probably the same thing. You know, if their setup is similar, you keep things that are familiar, and you don't wash everything up, so they still have things that smell like them, and, you know, feed them when you get there, something positive. I think you can kind of take all those things, and it will help any species of pet. For my dog particularly, I think I find when we move to new places, because he initially lived with me, and then I moved out of home, and then was in a new space. So when I moved that time, I found that leaving him alone was probably the biggest thing. I know with rabbits that's not as much of a thing, because they like attention, but they're also more happy to be kind of independent. They don't have that kind of, you know, anxiety about being left alone like dogs tend to have. So I found with him, that was his big thing. When we would, when I'd move to a new place and then just leave him there, even if, you know, I was at home for a couple of days and then had to go out, I found that kind of would stress him out a little bit. So one way I liked to help him out is by giving him a food toy. So like a toy, you put food in it, and then they've got to work out how to get the food out. When I moved this time, that didn't work as well because I think I wasn't as organized as what I would have liked to have been. So we moved, and then we still, like, even that night that we'd moved in, we had to go and get other stuff, and so that made things stressful because I had to leave the dog at home and go out, and so he was at home alone, you know, and we'd just gone into this new space, and so for them, in their minds, they're kind of like, okay, so I've been put at this new space, now mum's gone, what's happening? So I kind of guess if it's an animal like that, that has, you know, a bit of separation anxiety, if you can be more organized and kind of just be home for the first few days, or have someone at home if possible, and kind of feed them those treat toys and then kind of leave for increments to kind of get them used to the fact that I'm not leaving you here, then maybe that would probably be good, but I just couldn't do it. But, you know, I was giving him food toys, and, you know, it's not like I'd leave him and then, you know, be out all day and then come back. So, yeah. That's it for this video. I know it was more of a sitting down talking thing, but this is really something that I couldn't really find a lot of information on. Like, I couldn't really find a video. I couldn't find, like, any good or a lot of, like, articles written. The only things I kind of knew were from, like, Facebook groups that I've been in, or little bits of pieces of information that I picked up along that line. So I hope this is helpful for someone out there, because I know I was really worried about it when I went to move. How are the pets going to adjust? How are they going to go? Because it's not like a person that you can just explain to them what's going on. They don't understand. So I hope this is helpful, and I will see you in my next video.